Welcome back to our channel. I'm Cole and this is Blue.
With today's video, we're celebrating Star Wars Day and we're gonna make you build a little fun animation. And while it's simple, we will be using a lot of different features.
True. We'll be working with 2D and 3D elements inside a 3D space, use the Spline and Keyframe Editor for animation, and see how we can use simple particles to create a starry background. Particles. Let's get started.
Let's get started. Before we can start, and if you want to follow along, don't forget to download the assets which are linked in the description below.
Once this is done, we can jump right into DaVinci Resolve. Okay, this is optional, but if you care about matching our animation timing, make sure that your timeline is set at 30 FPS. Add a fusion composition, give it a name, and check that the frame rate matches your timeline. Now drag the composition to the timeline and change the clip duration to 15 seconds. Instead of sticking to the 6-second default duration, it is often a good idea to plan the length of your composition before going to the Fusion page. Inside Fusion, we'll begin by laying out a 3D space. Add an image plane 3D. This will be the base for the Millennium Falcon. Then add 2 Merge 3D nodes, a camera 3D, and a renderer 3D. Connect the renderer to the media out, and let's clean up our layout. For the deep space background, we're going to use a background node that we connect to the render output to automatically add a merge node. I'm going to make some extra space. Select the merge node and type Ctrl or Command+T to switch those inputs. To add the stars, we're going to use particles instead of a simple 2D image. And through this tutorial, you will see why this is a much better option. Add a P emitter, which is a tool generating particles, followed by a P render that for now will be connected to the main Merge 3D node. Select the P emitter node and in the inspector add a keyframe at frame 0. Set number at 3000. Lifespan to maximum. Go to frame 1 to add another keyframe. This time set at 0, so the P emitter doesn't generate new particles. Go to the region page and assign the Merge 3D node to the first viewer. Change region to cube. We are going to make it very large with the width set at 40 by 31 by 5. Let's zoom out so we can see our massive star field. How cool is that? Pretty cool, huh? We're going to offset the region on the z-axis to -16. Go to the style page and change style from point to blob. With size set to 0.03 and size variance set to 0.07. Now the camera is way too close, so we are going to move it in the opposite direction on the z-axis. Select the camera node, go to the transform page and set the z-axis translation to 11.54. To add the Millennium Falcon to our composition, we're going to use a loader. Add a loader node and select the Millennium Falcon image that you downloaded. Okay. Connect it to the image plane node and in the import page, select post multiply by alpha to clean up the edges. So now we could animate the spaceship by using the image plane transform page, but we are not going to do that. Instead of modifying the image plane position, we're going to use this merge node. And this is because we are going to add an extra element that needs to be animated as a group. Open the transform page, go to the frame 16, and add a keyframe to the y-axis translation control. Set it at -3.3. And if we have a look at our 3D view, we can see that the Millennium Falcon is out of sight. Then we are going to frame 35 and add another keyframe. This time set at -0.2. To add some bounce to our animation, we're going to use the Spline Editor. Open the Spline Editor select the Merge 3D Y offset and scale the view to fit all the keyframes. If I scrub through the clip, we can see how the animation reflects the spline. You can add a keyframe by simply clicking on the spline, but because I know precisely what I want, I'll go to the frame 62 and add another one. Back to the editor, I rescale, select the previous frame and type the S key to smooth the curve. I can now drag the handles to adjust the curve and create some bounce, holding the Ctrl key to move them independently. I'll set the last keyframe at -0.35 and quickly check the animation. To make the Millennium Falcon leave the screen, I'm gonna go to the frame 92 and add a keyframe. And at frame 105, I'm gonna add another keyframe, this time set at 7.6. In the 3D view, we can clearly see the spaceship path and how it is now leaving the frame. We need to smooth out the animation when the spaceship is leaving and add a bit more bounce. Let's play through. Next, we're going to add some subtone motion to the Millennium Falcon on the Z-axis. Let's go to frame 26 and add a keyframe on the Z-axis translation and set it at -0.9. And at frame 89, I'm going to add another keyframe, this time set at -0.6. It is very subtle, but you actually don't need much for the eye to register something. We are going to add a nice energy glow underlay to the Millennium Falcon. This will be the occasion to see why animating this Merge 3D node was a good idea. We're going to add a background node connected to an image plane 3D. Let's move it. In the image page, I'm going to set the size to 256 by 256 because we don't need to manipulate that many pixels. Assign the background to the first viewer. And in the color page, I'm going to change the type to gradient and the gradient type to radial. To create the vertical gradient, I am setting the start point X to 0.5 and Y to 1. The endpoint X to 0.5 and Y to 0. We can then change the top color to an electric blue. That's nice. Drag the bottom color to the left, lower the alpha to 0 and set the color to black. Select the image plane and connect it to the Merge 3D node. We can see here our underlay glow that needs to be adjusted to the spaceship. We're going to assign the image plane to the first viewer and zoom on it. We need to change the pivot by raising it on the y-axis to 0.5 to move it to the top of the glow. Okay, let's zoom in and adjust the glow position. Then for scale, I unlock X, Y, and Z, adjust the size, and set the y-axis scale to 0.5. And it's adding a nice glow. At frame 38, I am adding a keyframe to the Y size control. Now we need to have it stretch and shrink when it's slowing down. So I'll move the spaceship to the moment where it is entering the frame and add another keyframe set at 2.2. Let's check it out. Back to the Spline Editor, we're going to smooth out the keyframes we just created, selecting both keyframes and typing Ctrl or Command plus S to smooth out the animation. Wow, sweet. At frame 90, I'm adding keyframe set at 0.7. At frame 106, I am assigning the second Merge 3D node to the viewer, zoom on the Millennium Falcon, and add another keyframe set, this time at 3.6. Let's see how the animation looks. I need to raise the glow size at frame 90 from 0.7 to 0.85. Scrubbing through the animation, we can see that the energy burst is now more progressive. Next, I would like the camera to quickly zoom out when the Millennium Falcon accelerates. So to animate the camera, select the camera 3D node, go to frame 93 and add a keyframe to the Z-axis of the camera. Go to frame 127 and add a second keyframe set at 34.5. And on the last frame, I'm going to add a third keyframe, set this time at 50. Once again, we're going to use the Spline Editor to smooth out the camera motion. I select the two first keyframes and type S, zooming in, and to clear the view, I can hide any splines that I don't need. I can now adjust the handle to speed up the acceleration and do the same for the second keyframe. Let's have a look. It's okay, but actually we need to ease down the camera motion for the in and out points. This is a good start, but as the medium Falcom is leaving the frame way too fast, we're not getting that feeling of great distance. And we also need to ease down the motion of the spaceship inside the editor. With the Merge 3D way offset selected, pull the handle to ease the ship animation. Let's play it. Next step is to add a 3D text for the camera to fly through. With the P emitter selected, add a new Merge 3D and a text 3D that we're connecting to the Merge 3D node. Type the text, a long time ago in the galaxy, far, far away. Change the color to an electric blue. Okay. And set the size to 0.42. For now, the text looks very small, but it is because we need to move it on the Z-axis. Align the text to the left and switch to the transform page. I am going to set the X-axis to -1.8 to center the text, the Y to -0.28 and Z 27. Let's play it through. That's really good. This is totally optional in this case, but we can add a little bit of depth to this text. For this, open the extrusion panel and pull this slider to the right. Go to the shading page, and as we don't have any light in this scene, we must simulate it by deselecting Use One Material. Change the bevel material to a darker blue. Time to add that cool May the Force logo, and this is going to be the opportunity to mix 2D and 3D compositing. We need to add another loader to bring in the logo. Let's assign it to the first viewer so we can have a better look at it. Not essential in this case, but as a reminder, remember to select Post Multiply by Alpha to keep the edges clean on images that are not pre-multiplied. To resize the logo, we need a transform node downstream that we're going to connect to the renderer 3D output. Select the transform node and set the size at 0.5. For the logo to appear behind the Millennium Falcom, select the merge node and type Ctrl or Command+T. As it is, the logo is either in front or behind the 3D scene, and we need it right in the middle of it. It is not very noticeable in this precise case, and we could get away with it, but the stars are actually in front of the logo. I am going to show you how to work around this issue by splitting our 3D scene in two with a separate renderer for the particles and the 3D text. Using multiple renderers offers a lot of benefits in terms of optimizations and flexibility. We'll start by disconnecting this merge 3D and copy the renderer. Now, select the merge node and paste an instance by typing Ctrl-Shift or Command-Shift-V. Instances are super useful, and unlike for duplicates, controls are linked and synchronized between all instances. I didn't mention it earlier, but to maximize performance, you can switch the render type to OpenGL, so your GPU takes over rendering. To connect this renderer to the main branch, we are going to make some space and connect it to the first merge output. Type Ctrl or Command+T to switch it and place it in the background. And the good thing is that because those two renderers are linked together, we can change any settings and it will be automatically updated in the second one. Like here for the renderer type. Now we have an issue because when we play the clip, the stars are not animated anymore. And this is because our main camera here is not connected to the second 3D space. So as we did for the renderer, we're going to copy the camera node and paste an instance with Ctrl-Shift or Command-Shift-V. Connect it to the Merge 3D node. And that easily, the background is now synchronized to the main camera motion. So the idea is that once the Millennium Falcon leaves the frame, it goes around, goes closer to the camera, and make a flyby across the screen, revealing the logo. I'm going to the frame 105, assign the main Merge 3D node to the right viewer, and add a keyframe to the x-axis. Go to the next frame and add another keyframe, this time set at -12. We move the spaceship out of the way and its path is visible as an overlay. And we can use those controls to directly adjust the value of each keyframe. I am adding a frame to the z-axis, moving to frame 195 to add keyframe to all 3 axes. We leave x at -12, y at -2.3 and z 29. In the 3D view, we can clearly visualize the path, and to see how close it got to the camera, we can assign the next Merge 3D node to the right viewer. There. Now we need to make the spaceship fly in front of the logo. And for this, we'll go to frame 232 to add keyframes to each control, with x set at 15.5 and y at 2.8. In the 3D view, I can see that the Millennium Falcon is facing the wrong direction. To fix this, I go to the previous keyframe and add a keyframe to the rotation z-axis. Next, at frame 195, I'm going to add the last keyframe set at -80. The spaceship is now facing the right direction, but it is passing too low. To fix this visually, we can switch the 3D view to front. Let's zoom out. Then I can drag the center control, and because we change the view to front, there is no risk to have this point move on the z-axis. I'm gonna pass a few times over the logo to make sure that the Millennium Falcon is now properly aligned. We'll fix the text sticking out of the logo later. Let's play it through, and you can follow the path inside the 3D view. To reveal the logo, we need to mask it first. For this, we are going to add 2 nodes. First, a matte control to easily create a garbage matte. And then, instead of using the polygon tool, we only need to add a transform node. That we're going to feed with the image coming from the previous transform node, so the logo will be basically masking itself. The garbage matte input is a darker gray, and this is the one that we need connected to the transform output. Alright, that made the logo disappear. Now, we're going to animate this mask with a few keyframes. Around frame 210, we're adding a keyframe to the center control. Moving to frame 219 to add a second keyframe with X at 1.5 and Y at 0.9. We can see how the mask is moving out of the frame, but it still needs a few adjustments. Right here. One easy way to adjust keyframes timing is the Keyframes Editor. I am swapping the spline for the Keyframes Editors. I need to find the second transform control, open it, I'm gonna zoom in, I'm gonna go 1 frame to the back and pull that first keyframe. Let's see how it looks. And that's good until now. Here we can see that the mask is dragging behind. I can simply move the overlay, making sure that the mask doesn't stick out like right here. And this way we can quickly add as many keyframes as we need. That was really easy. The only thing left to fix is the 3D text sticking out of the logo, and this is super easy to do with the Spline Editor. With the camera spline selected, we're going to adjust the last keyframe handle until the text disappears. Just a bit more. There's still a little bit on the bottom right. With the animation complete, we can add a few extra effects. Let's add some extra glow to that energy underlay. With the background selected, I'm going to add a soft glow that we're going to adjust by raising the glow size to maximum. Threshold at 0.06, gain at 0.9. It is adding a little bit of glow, and we can see the difference between before and after. The second effect could be optional, but I would like the Millennium Falcon to cast a shadow over the 3D text. Let's move both renderers out of the way, select the main renderer, and add a drop shadow. It actually looks pretty good without changing any settings. For the last effect, let's add some motion blur. Select the renderer, switch to the settings page, and check motion blur. By default, quality is set to 2, which isn't the cleanest. But motion blur can be very resource intensive, so be mindful. I am setting quality to 4 and the shutter angle to 45 degrees. That's looking much better. Motion blur can make a massive difference, but once again, don't use more than what you need. For example, if I drop the quality, it is not making a big visual difference, while saving a lot of resources. The right amount of motion blur will depend on your image and the type of motion. And here, when the spaceship is larger, I can see actually a bigger difference, though you might not be able to see it after YouTube compression. In the end, only activate motion blur when you are ready to render. When adding complex compositions to a timeline, you are likely to find it very difficult to keep a smooth playback. And while we are busy producing a dedicated video about performance in Fusion, here's a lifesaver. In the edit page, our clip is being cached, and thanks to the OpenGL renderer, our CPU is not choking. And this is because the GPU is also actively rendering. If software rendering was selected, the CPU will be maxed out, and rendering would take a lot longer. Now, if I bring my sound design, all those sound effects are from Epidemic Sound. They have a very large library full of quality sound effects, and we have a link in the description if you want to check them out and get yourself a free trial. But the thing is, when you work on sound design, you need a smooth playback. And while here, playback is perfectly smooth because the clip is fully cached and our workstation can easily handle it, you might have a different experience with your system. So here's how to achieve a smooth playback and continue working on your timeline. Right-click on the clip and select Render in Place. The settings here are specific to our workflow and are designed to match our cache and maximize quality. But you have a large choice of containers and codecs. You can render extra frame handles to preserve frames that you might have trimmed. You can also choose to render effects, fusion compositions, and color grading. Click on Render and choose where to save the clip. It is going to be very fast because as this is matching our cache format, there's only minimal rendering. And now, the great thing is that no matter how complex your composition is, playback will be perfectly smooth.
And this is how you build a Star Wars intro.
We hope you found it fun and that you enjoyed this video.
Give it a like and send it flying through the algorithm.
And we'll see you.
And we'll see you
in the next video.
in the next video.
May the force be with you.